Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Podcast Daily. Happy Monday. It is time to kick off another week with Jeremy Birmingham, me, Austin Ward, and guess what? Bill Landis is back, baby.
I'm back. Almost lost my sanity, but I'm back.
Nice relaxing vacation, Bill. Tell the people how it started and how it went.
Yeah, driving along I-70 on my way to Pittsburgh last weekend, I guess this would have been, to meet my wife and child there, to get the whole crew together to go to DC a couple days later, and car just stopped working. Every light on my dashboard, every like emergency light that can come on came on all at the same time. And like the cruise control shut off, and I could still drive it, but like it wouldn't switch gears, and like I couldn't drive up a hill. And I was in St. Clairsville, so I had to get towed from St. Clairsville to the Subaru dealership in Wheeling, West Virginia. Lovely man towed me and my dog to the Wheeling Subaru. Left my car there. Had to figure out different travel arrangements. My car was there all week while I was in Washington, D.C. Cost me $1,600 to get it fixed, and then picked it up and drove it back. So the time in DC was lovely. Me and the boy just kind of walked around for 2 days when my wife did a work conference. But the travel there and the money cost to get my car back was not so great. So it was a real mixed bag.
Bill, I'm not going to pretend to know what you believe in, but don't you think that perhaps some way this was a higher power telling you that you ever go to Pittsburgh?
I thought you were going to say Washington. Both.
Yeah, that wasn't the destination.
Yeah,
I know, but if he just would have went straight to DC, I think this would have been avoided.
As a proud Philadelphian, I have mixed feelings on Pittsburgh. I think I mostly like it, but also I can't avoid going there because now half of my family lives there, so I have to.
There are repercussions to every decision we make.
Yeah, some of us make sacrifices and have to go places we don't want to go, unfortunately.
What a glamorous couple weeks of vacation between Berm's trip to New York City and your trip to DC. Who knows what could happen to me when we leave for Texas on Friday? I am a little bit concerned because we're flying. So the worst case scenario, that was pretty bad.
The difference is you're actually taking a vacation. We were both de facto working, just in a different city, but in a different capacity.
I'm going to work. I'm not taking this one off. It's not like going to Disney. Who's that guy I'm supposed to go see there? I'm going to do it this time, I promise.
Yeah, well, too late.
Oh, shoot.
In Lufkin? Is he in Lufkin?
No, I'm not going to Lufkin.
Oh, okay.
That one's out. So, big week. What do we have? 3 recruiting camps, Berm, on tap this week?
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, yes.
Okay, so because of that, we will move Roosters. Our visit there will be on Tuesday. So look for that. It'll be a day behind, and then we'll have a ton of coverage, camp coverage at ohiostate.rivals.com. The whole crew will be out there. We'll try and Bill and I will maybe get up some information about some of the workouts. We'll see what we can figure out about the current team. But Bill, I know that we talked about it last week. I know that you enjoy heading out there to see the young guys working at camp. What is it that you most like about it?
I like the opportunity to talk with the coaching staff, like in a far more relaxed setting than we typically get to. I know you guys talked a little bit about that last week. I did check in on the podcast daily, even though I wasn't a part of it. So much of what you guys talked about. And then I like watching the lineman stuff, obviously, that used to be in the morning session that I guess is also happening simultaneously with everything else now. I like lineman one-on-ones. Like I don't think they're the best barometer of where guys are, because you're not wearing pads, and like defensive linemen can get away with murder basically when you do those things. But I think it's a good indication of guys like compete level and stuff like that. So I enjoy watching that probably more than any other drill.
Berm, what will you be watching this week? Do you have any idea what's on tap?
Monday, I'm expecting to see Jordan Davison, a 5-star running back from California in the class of 2025. He should work out. He's on campus, arrived on Sunday with his family for a 3-day visit. He's the number 1 ranked running back in the country in the class of 2025. So that's one I'm really looking forward to. And up Bill's alley is Carter Lowe, a highly ranked 4-star 2025 offensive lineman from Toledo Whitmer High School, who will camp. that one's going to be an Ohio State-Michigan battle whenever it comes down to him making a decision. So those are two guys I'm really looking forward to. And there's a wide receiver in the class of 2026 coming up from Florida named Ephraim White, who Ohio State has already offered. He's got a potential, but with him and Chris Henry Jr., who was there last Thursday, if you're starting to project like way ahead at Brian Hartline's like next real, like the class of just dudes, that 26 class has a couple with White and Chris Henry that will be very interesting to watch. So there's a couple of guys that I'm just really focusing on. There's some young quarterbacks coming into campus again, but it's really to me about seeing the Carter Lowe thing and the Jordan Davison, because I think Ohio State's going to make that recruitment with Davison more interesting than people are giving them credit for.
If you missed Berm's coverage on Thursday of the first camp, was it Thursday or Friday? I don't know. All the days run together.
It's Thursday.
Either way, if you missed that at ohiostate.rivals.com, fantastic notebook that Berm put together on Friday. If you want to go read that and you're not a member already, you can use code DTE30 and join us over there. The other thing we were talking about on Friday, I'm going to lump these two things together. To get Bill's thoughts on the Big Ten scheduling unveiling for 24 and 25. And also, I think they go hand in hand with what Gene Smith talked about. He was on the 11 Warriors podcast, Real Pod Wednesday, and he basically said, I don't know what the big deal is about people freaking out about Michigan. I'm paraphrasing a little, and maybe that's hyperbole. Of course, everyone at Ohio State wants to win the rivalry game. They've not given up on it. But I think that some of the perspective that's coming from Gene Smith there, and we've heard from other people this offseason, like, you can't necessarily put all of your eggs into that one basket anymore, because that didn't really have any impact on whether Ohio State could or couldn't win a national championship, which they very nearly did. And so Gene Smith, sort of the kicker there with that interview, was like, he wants to win the Biggie. And that, in his view, is more geared towards the national championship than the game.
I mean, that's true, right? Like, yeah, that's true. We want to win the national championship. However you get there, you want to win the national championship. I think maybe what perhaps was misconstrued in there is maybe people heard like Michigan game doesn't matter anymore. I don't think that's what he meant. At least I would hope that's not what he meant. It still very much matters. Like, rivalry games still matter. I guess, like, it's not 1973 anymore, and the state of play has changed, and what mattered the most back then does not matter as much now in terms of being a roadblock to bigger goals. But like, Ohio State fans wake up in the morning and they want to beat Michigan. And like that, I hope that never changes. And I hope that people never tell Ohio State fans that should change. I think we have to process that game differently moving forward, but it doesn't mean it should be any less meaningful to you. So I don't know how to take that. If it's just like, let's be honest about the situation now and understand that like the main thing is to win the national championship, and beating Michigan is no longer a requirement to do that. Fair, true. Like, obviously, if it's like that game doesn't matter anymore, I disagree with that, because I think it has always and should always matter.
Yeah. And the reality is, I think some of the conversation comes down to, there's a very real chance you're going to have to play Michigan twice in a lot of these seasons. So,
or three times.
So beating them once in the regular season may not carry the gravitas that it did before, because in a lot of cases you may have to play them again a week later. So you're going to need to be able to put all those things into the proper perspective and realize that each one of them matters, but they may not matter all as much as they always did traditionally. And again, no one likes to hear that, because you don't want to take away any value from the rivalry. But if you look at like Duke and North Carolina in basketball, they play each other 3-4 times a year now, and every game is still chaos, and every game is still incredible and must-watch TV. Even if you're not a really big college basketball fan, that game is always super fun, and it always matters, and you can always feel it in the environments at Cameron Indoor or at Chapel Hill. So whatever happens from here, Gene Smith probably needs to understand that Buckeyes fans aren't going to take that sort of conversation like happily. They're not going to hear that and be like, you know what, he's right, this game doesn't matter, because you don't want to hear that from the guy in charge of the athletic department. But Gene is a smart guy. He understands what he's saying, but I just think sometimes maybe someone in his position probably just shouldn't say it.
I think there's also, it ties into, there's that element, and I'm not telling, I want to be careful about how I say this. Anyone who feels that strongly about the rivalry, I get it, and you should never let anyone else change your mind. If that's what's important to you, I have no issue with that, and I'm not here to say you should care about it less. The expectations inside the program are to win a national championship. Part of that has always included winning gold pants and winning the rivalry. And they're not taking down the countdown clock. They're not getting rid of team up north periods. All those things are still a fabric and a backbone of the program. I'm only saying that the way college football has changed, which has negatively impacted the value of rivalry games, specifically the one that I think is the best, which is Ohio State, Michigan. Because you have these broadcast deals and that we have to do things that feel dirty, like talking about college football games as inventory for CBS, Fox, ABC, ESPN, everybody down the line that's invested in college football. Like I don't like doing that. The only reason that I bring up, like, hey, well, maybe this is why the goals have shifted, or the expectation, or some of the importance in a postseason evaluation of the season has changed, is because like college football has diminished the importance of a regular season game when it used to be the last one, and you were guaranteed nothing beyond that when Ohio State and Michigan played, as you said, Bill, in 1973. Like, somebody who grew up on that, I'm sure that they hate that this is even a conversation now, that you could say that any other game is more important than playing and winning that one. And I certainly understand that, but that's also the case for 73, 83, 93, 2003. The game has changed so dramatically. That part does suck. And there's going to have to be some sort of reckoning at college football, because as Berman and I talked about with these schedules, the tradition is what made this sport so popular. And then all the money is wiping away what made it great in the first place.
Yeah, I think Gene's comments raise an interesting discussion about, I guess for lack of a better word, like job security for the head coach at Ohio State, right? Like John Cooper was fired because he couldn't beat Michigan. And I think if college football were still structured the same way now as it was then, that would be the game that you would use. You disagree with me, Berm?
He was 2-10-1 against Michigan. If any head coach at Ohio State goes 2-10-1 over a 13-year period against Michigan, regardless, I don't care. Even if they win a national championship in that time, and Cooper could have won a couple of them had he not lost to Michigan, I don't think anyone's going to hold on to a coach that's 2-10-1, even if they're making the playoffs as the 9 or 10 seed.
I'm not saying whether or not I think they should, but I kind of think they would. I
suppose you could make the argument for it, and I can understand it. I think the sickness that would be festering inside of the fan base's stomach, would make that coach decide to leave before he gets fired.
Berm is about to puke right now thinking about that.
The John Cooper
that's
era,
the point, though, isn't it?
Was the worst time of my life. Okay,
but isn't that the point of what we're? And I'm not trying to make Berm vomit on YouTube here, but like Ryan Day doesn't beat Michigan for the next 4 years and wins 2 national championships. Very
probably
possible.
Not getting fired. Yeah,
he's not going to get fired.
You build a statue for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thought exercise, I guess. I just don't think that. I don't think that will happen. So because
I think
what
it
we
is
saw,
unlikely. I think
it's unlikely for a couple of reasons. Number one, there will come a time when voters and national media starts to change the way they view Ohio State if they can't beat Michigan, and you will start to see them be given less leeway when it comes to their ranking and that kind of stuff. Number two, we watched for 4 weeks last December as the fan base and a good portion of the people who are directly related to the program after the loss to Michigan lamented the fact that they even made the playoff, and were like, I don't even know why we're in this. And it took everything to muster up the energy and juice to even put together the game plan that they had against Georgia and come out swinging the way they did. And I think at some point you would lose the ability to keep bouncing back like that if you lost another 4 straight or something to Michigan. Just, I mean, again, we're playing a hypothetical game here, so it's sort of irrelevant, but the mindset that you have to have to compete for a national championship after losing to your rival every year in, year out. Like, I don't think that you'd be able to handle it as a program. I think people would be like, screw this, I'm out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I do think that is correct. At least that would be my assumption too. But I do, I think the gravity of that game, I think, has changed in this context. Like, if you're gonna do what Ohio State did last year, lose to Michigan and then come a 50-yard field goal away from winning a playoff game, and then everyone assumes you would have won the national championship that year. Like, if you just keep doing that, I don't know. I think it makes it hard to part with coaches if you keep doing that. Because then I guess ideally, like, you want to do both, or you want to beat Michigan, anyone to win a national title. But like, say the new guy comes in and like all he does is beat Michigan and does nothing else. Like, is that better? Like, I have no idea. I think I don't think the notion that winning a national championship is more important is inherently wrong. It's probably right. And the dynamics are changing with the Michigan game. Like, whether you like it or not, I personally don't like it. I wish it held its standing that it's had forever. But there's not really anything we can do about that. And I think we all need to kind of, if anyone else is like feeling the way that I am, like conflicted about that, I think we all kind of need to come around to the idea that, that game is not necessarily the end all be all right now when it comes to evaluating people and whether or not they're doing a good enough job. Well,
that's why I think it's just a matter of Gene people are not going to want to hear that from Gene. And I think what you're saying makes a ton of sense. And I actually think if we were to go back in time, or if we fast forward 20 years from now, one way or the other, and you look at the Urban Meyer era at Ohio State, he beat Michigan those 7 straight times. But other than the national championship in 2014, like, objectively, the Urban Meyer 7-year stretch was not nearly as good as I think people remember it to be. And I think it's viewed that way because they beat Michigan, and people gloss over the 31-0 loss to Clemson, or the Purdue game, or the Iowa game, or any other embarrassments that happened in the program in that time. Like, there is actually a case to be made that they completely, we've talked about this before, like, entirely underachieved in those 7 years under Urban Meyer, considering the NFL draft impact and success they had, considering the 7 wins against Michigan, considering the playoff bursts they had. Like, would people view that era different if they won 3 national championships but only finished 4-3 against Michigan? I don't know. Like, it's a thought exercise that I don't think anyone wants to really partake in.
Whew. Plus, not all 7 of those wins were against like very, very good Michigan teams. So that sounds like a different show entirely. Bill, Ohio State, Penn State not being a permanent Flex Premier Pro Plus protected game. Berm and I shared our thoughts on that. Seemed a little bit surprising, but they're unrivaled, so I guess that's how it goes.
Yeah, like, it's not a historical rivalry, right? It doesn't go back decades and decades and decades like Ohio State Michigan does, but like, they played every year, right? That Penn State has been in the Big Ten. It's going to be weird when they don't play. I would be lying if I said I wasn't at least a little bit bummed when I saw that wasn't going to be an every year thing. I guess the way that they couched it was maybe they can bring it back as an every year thing. It's kind of a 2-year thing, and then we'll see where it goes. I was hoping, and I would have guessed that game would have been protected. I guess for competitive balance reasons, it makes sense why you wouldn't want to do that. And like, I think I might have texted you or messaged both of you guys on Slack after. Like, I'm mostly glad they didn't try to like shoehorn a BS rivalry game in for Ohio State. If it's just Ohio State, Michigan protected, obviously protect that. That's fine. And I guess as long as Ohio State and Penn State play more often than not, then I'm okay with that. But it'll be a little weird to not have them play every year.
Are you suggesting that the Illabuck is not a real rivalry?
No, even that I would have been like, okay, at least they have a trophy. But like, if they would have made, I don't know, like Ohio State play Indiana every year because Indiana needed another protected rival besides Purdue, like that would have like really ticked me off. So thankfully they didn't do that.
The other good news is that we cut down on the amount of times that we have to travel to Happy Valley. Like, once every 4 years is way better to me to go visit that press box than once every other year. So
that is true.
Praise be to the Big Ten scheduling gods for that.
They are allegedly building a new one sometime in the near future. I'll believe it when I see it, but that is the word. My sources in State College tell me, and my source is Audrey Snyder. They tell me that they're going to be building a new press box there someday soon.
When they do that, in 2055, I hope that I'm no longer covering college football.
I mean, that by the time that happens, baby Gronk will be playing for the Nets. Looking forward to that.
Did you not get an eval on baby Gronk last week, Berm?
He did not show up.
Oh, wow.
Baby Gronk afraid of competition?
He lied to Ari Wasserman of The Athletic?
He must
not
have,
baby Gronk. Baby Gronk's representative.
His handler.
His father.
Yeah. He was too busy DMing every sports writer in America to make the trip to Columbus.
I'm not going to lie. I was hoping that he would show up. I thought it'd be a fun side story to camp, camp opening up. It's better than like when Big Ten Network shows up, at least that is something interesting. And we don't have to watch as people who don't cover the team get access that we never get.
Hey, when they come, we get to watch practice now.
That's right. It's a new day.
Yeah, it is. All right. So that's the week ahead. 3 recruiting camps, Bill being back, Roosters on Tuesday. What am I missing, Berm?
Should have, I hope, some positive developments in the recruiting front just after a busy weekend. 15 official visitors. I put in a couple future casts on Sunday on Rivals.com for Jalen McClain, safety from New Jersey. Marquise Lightfoot, borderline 5-star defensive end from Chicago. It was a really good weekend for Ohio State. Big weekend coming up again with another big group of official visitors, but you should start to see the recruiting valve start to reopen and see some positive news coming down the pike.
All right. Berm will stay busy as the Buckeyes do on the recruiting trail in June. All that coverage at ohiostate.rivals.com, and we will talk about it here on the podcast. Thanks for starting your Monday with us. We hope you have a great week. For Bill and Berm, I'm Austin. We will talk to you later.